we come to March 5th, same year, 2000. And the CIA learns some additional information, very critical information. On March 5th, the CIA learns that al-Hazmi had actually entered the United States on January 15th, 7 days after leaving the al-Qaeda meeting in Malaysia. So now the CIA knows al-Hazmi is in the United States, but the CIA still doesn't put al-Hazmi or al-Mihdhar on the watch list and still does not notify the FBI about a very critical fact. A known al-Qaeda operative, we're at war with al-Qaeda, a known al-Qaeda operative got into the United States. My question is, do you know specifically why the FBI was not notified of that critical fact at that time?
The cable that came in from the field at the time, sir, was labeled information only, and I know that nobody read that cable.
But my question is, do you know why the FBI was not notified of the fact that an al-Qaeda operative now was known in March of the year 2000 to have entered the United States? Why was the CIA, why did the CIA not specifically notify the CIA? That's my question. The FBI.
Sir, if we weren't aware of it, when it came in the headquarters, we couldn't have notified them. Nobody read that cable in March, in the March time frame.
So that the cable that said that al-Hazmi had entered the United States came to your headquarters, nobody read it?
Yes, sir. It was an information-only cable from the field, and nobody read that information-only cable.
Should it have been read?
Yes, of course, in hindsight.
And should it have been read at the time?
Of course it should have been read.
All right, my question is, do you know who should have read it?
I don't know that, sir, but I can find that out.
Was somebody responsible to have read it?
Well, there are a group of people, somebody should have read it, yes, sir. We need to also look at where it came into, but I can find that out.
You don't know who that person was?
I do not.
Should they have been watch listed at the time, both of them? Now we're talking March of the year 2000.
Yes, sir. We've acknowledged that fact.
Okay. Do we know why in that specific time? Now we know that al-Hazmi has entered the United States. It's another trigger point.
Yes, sir.
They should have been watch listed. Who was responsible for watch listing at that time?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I will provide an answer.
Next, on October 12th, 2000, Bin Laden operatives attacked the USS Cole. The FBI, which investigated that attack, learned that a Bin Laden follower, Khalid, was the principal planner of the Cole bombing, and that two other participants in the Cole conspiracy had delivered money to Khalid at the Malaysia meeting. Now, the FBI told the CIA about those facts. That information came from the FBI to the CIA. CIA went back, reviewed the facts that they had about the Malaysia meeting again. And as a result of that review, in January of 2001, the CIA determined that Khalid had actually been at the Malaysia meeting and that al-Mihdhar and al-Hazmi, then, they knew, you knew, had been involved with the planner of the Cole bombing. Actually been with the planner of the Cole bombing at the Malaysia meeting. CIA again failed to put either al-Hazmi or al-Mihdhar on the watch list or to notify the FBI that al-Hazmi was in the United States. And my question is, do you know who was responsible for that failure?
Sir, can I take you back on
Sure.
the facts for a moment? First of all, in terms of the identification of Khalid, actually it was the FBI who provided the information to us because we were in a joint meeting at the time at a third country because we were running a joint case with somebody who identified Khalid. And indeed, in January of 2001, the legal attaché from this third country writes messages to both our headquarters that after having been shown the surveillance photos of Kuala Lumpur, he made an identification of Khalid. So at that point, sir, both the CIA and the FBI know that al-Mihdhar was in Malaysia and that in this time period, and that Khalid was in Malaysia at this time period as well.
Now that's irrelevant to my point. What you did not notify the CIA of at that point.
No, the FBI.
Excuse me, but you did not notify, thank you, the FBI of at that point is that you knew that al-Hazmi was in the United States.
That's correct, sir.
That's January now of 2001. Another failure.
Sir, there are 3 instances, as I note in my testimony, on 3 separate occasions.
I know. My question, do you know who was responsible to notify the FBI at that time?
I don't, but I will find out for you.
Now we have a meeting in the year 2002 in New York City. And this is a meeting of a CIA analyst and FBI officials from the New York field office, which was the office investigating the Cole bombing and the FBI headquarters, including the FBI analyst on detail to the counterterrorist center at the CIA. The FBI agents on the Cole bombing pressed the CIA at that meeting for information regarding al-Mihdhar and the Malaysia meeting, but the CIA representative denied them that information. It's a very specific finding in the staff report that there was a refusal to share that information relative to al-Mihdhar and Malaysia and as to why the CIA was tracking al-Mihdhar at a June 2001 meeting on the specific request of an FBI agent in New York. My question is, do you know why that CIA agent refused to tell the CIA agent what the FBI, what the CIA, let me start over. Do you know why the CIA agent refused to tell the FBI agent what the CIA agent knew when the FBI agent specifically said, why are you tracking al-Mihdhar?
We're going to have a disagreement on the facts here. And here are the facts as I understand them. There were 3 people who left New York to go to Washington to go to New York that day. It was an FBI analyst from FBI headquarters, an FBI analyst from our counterterrorism center, and our analyst. They went up to discuss the Cole investigation. The FBI analyst from FBI headquarters brought the surveillance photos with her. And at the end of the conversation, and I've now talked to 2 of the people involved, Senator, the FBI analyst from FBI headquarters handed the surveillance photos to the New York field office personnel. There was some discussion about them. Indeed, they were talking about different people. al-Mihdhar was not who they were talking about in this meeting. When I asked our person at this meeting as to whether he was specifically asked about al-Mihdhar and al-Hazmi, he has no recollection of the subject ever being directed to him or ever coming up. So there's a factual issue here, and I've only talked to 2 of the people involved.
Let me read you the staff report. The CIA analyst who attended the New York meeting acknowledged to the Joint Inquiry staff that he had seen the information regarding al-Mihdhar's U.S. visa and al-Hazmi's travel to the United States, but he stated that he would not share information outside of the CIA unless he had authority to do so. That's what he told our staff. Do you disagree with that?
Sir, I've talked to him as well.
Do you disagree that he said that to our staff?
Well, no, I don't disagree. He said it to your staff. I'm telling you what
Did
he
he
told.
tell you something differently?
Yes, sir. He gave me a different
So
perspective.
he told you and he told our staff something differently.
Well,
okay.
But I think it's important, sir.
Yeah, but our time is limited, so let me just keep going. That's the answer. He told you something differently from what he told our staff. Mr. Mueller, Director Mueller, at that June 11th meeting, did the FBI know that al-Mihdhar and Hazmi were at the January 2000 meeting of al-Qaeda operatives in Malaysia?
I don't believe they did.
All right. So we still don't know in June of 2001 what the CIA has known for 15 months.
May 1996, al-Qaeda begins using an important communications hub and operations center in Sana'a, Yemen. The hub is set up because al-Qaeda is headquartered in Afghanistan, but requires another location that has access to regular telephone services and major air links. It is located in the Yemeni capital of Sana'a, in the neighborhood of Madba. Ahmed al-Hada, an associate of Osama Bin Laden's, who fought in Afghanistan, runs the hub and lives there with his family. Terrorism analyst Rohan Guantanana will say that the hub is used as a switchboard to divert and receive calls and messages from the Middle East region and beyond. FBI agent Mark Rossini will later say the house was a focal point for operatives in the field to call in. That number would contact Bin Laden to pass along information and receive instruction back. Author James Bamford will add, the house in Yemen became the epicenter of bin Laden's war against the United States, a logistics base to coordinate attacks, and a switchboard to pass on others. Also, a safe house where his field commanders could meet to discuss and carry out operations. Bin Laden himself places many calls to the house, and it is used to coordinate the attacks on U.S. embassies in East Africa in 1998 and the bombing of the USS Cole in 2000. Future 9/11 hijacker Khalid al-Mihdhar also lives at the house at some point in the late 1990s with his wife Hoda, al-Hada's daughter. On January 2nd, 2000, the CIA is aware that hijacker Khalid al-Mihdhar is staying at a highly monitored communications hub in Yemen and is planning to travel to an al-Qaeda meeting in Malaysia. He is closely watched as he leaves the hub and flies from Sana'a Yemen to Dubai, United Arab Emirates, on his way to Malaysia. Agents from 8 CIA offices and its friendly foreign intelligence services are all asked to help track him in the hopes he will lead them to bigger al-Qaeda figures. The CIA and local authorities are running an operation to track militants transmitting Dubai Airport, and United Arab Emirates officials secretly make copies of his passport as he is passing through. It immediately reported to the CIA. Another account suggests CIA agents break into al-Mihdhar's Dubai hotel room and photocopy the passport there. Either way, the information is immediately faxed to Alec Station, the CIA's bin Laden unit. The CIA not only learns his full name, but also discovers the vital fact that he has a multiple entry visa to the United States and that it is valid from April of 1999 to April of 2000. But even though the CIA now knows about the U.S. visa, which indicates he plans to go to New York City, they do not place him on a terrorist watch list, and they fail to tell the FBI about the visa. At around 7 p.m., January 5th, 2000, CIA officer Michelle Ann Casey sends out a cable saying the information that Khalid al-Mihdhar has a U.S. visa has been sent to the FBI for further investigation. The cable does not state how the visa information was passed or by whom. Casey is with Alec Station. The cable, which is lengthy and summarizes information about al-Mihdhar and 3 other operatives planning an al-Qaeda summit meeting in Malaysia, is sent to some overseas CIA stations, but not the FBI. The CIA, which will be criticized for its apparent failure to tell the FBI of al-Mihdhar's visa after 9/11, will repeatedly tout the cable as evidence that it had actually informed the FBI of al-Mihdhar's visa, or at least thought it done so. However, this appears not to be true, as after 9/11, the FBI will be unable to find any record of receiving such information, and the CIA will be unable to find any record of having sent it. In addition, as Casey blocked the relevant notification to the FBI on this day and insists it not be passed the next day, she must know the claim the information about al-Mihdhar's visa had been passed is false. Casey will apparently lie about this cable to the Justice Department's Inspector General and CIA Director George Tenet shortly before April 30th of 2007. Between the hours of 9:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. on January 5th of 2000, Doug Miller, an FBI agent assigned to Alec Station, reads CIA cables reporting that 9/11 hijacker Khalid al-Mihdhar has a U.S. visa and drafts the cable to the FBI to inform of this. The CIA obtained the information through a tap on al-Mihdhar's phone in Yemen and by monitoring him as he passed through Dubai on his way to an al-Qaeda summit meeting in Malaysia. Miller writes that al-Mihdhar has a U.S. visa and that the visa application states his destination is New York and he intends to stay for 3 months. The draft cable mentions the tap on al-Mihdhar's phone, his planned travel to Malaysia, and the links between his phone and the 1998 East Africa embassy bombings. It also says that the CIA has obtained photographs of al-Mihdhar, and these will be sent separately. Miller asks the FBI for feedback resulting from an FBI investigation. Michelle Ann Casey is the first to read Miller's draft about an hour after he writes it. The cable is then blocked on the orders of the station's deputy chief, Toim Wilshire, as a few hours after Miller's draft, the cable, Casey attaches a message to it saying, Please hold off on cable for now, per Toim Wilshire. Miller is also told that it's not a matter for the FBI. Author James Bamford will later comment, a potential terrorist and member of al-Qaeda was heading for the United States, the FBI's jurisdiction, its turf, and Miller was putting the FBI on notice so it could take action. There was no reason to kill the message. Miller will later say that he saw no rational answer as to why the cable was blocked, but will speculate that Alec station officers were annoyed he had encroached on their territory. Casey drafts a cable falsely saying the information about al-Mihdhar's visa has been shared with the FBI, and there will be a discussion the next day about whether the cable should be sent. The Justice Department's Office of Inspector General will later call the failure to pass the information to the FBI a significant failure, but will be unable to determine why the information was not passed on. The 9/11 Commission will know of the incident, but will relegate it to an endnote in its final report, omitting Wilshire's role entirely. The CIA Inspector General will falsely claim that the cable is not sent, apparently because it was in the wrong format or needed setting. On January 6th of 2000, the next day, Mark Rossini, the CIA, who's on loan to Alec Station, protests in vain against a decision to deliberately withhold information about one of the 9/11 hijackers, Khalid al-Mihdhar, from the FBI. One of his colleagues, Doug Miller, had tried to warn the FBI, but he was refused to do so. According to author James Bamford, Rossini was perplexed and outraged that the CIA would forbid the Bureau's notification on a matter so important. Rossini will later say, so the next day I went to her and said, what's with Doug's cable? You got to tell the Bureau about this. She put her hand on her hip and said, look, the next attack is going to happen in Southeast Asia. It's not the Bureau's jurisdiction. When we want the FBI to know about it, we'll let them know. But the next Bin Laden attack is going to happen in Southeast Asia. Rossini protests saying, they're here, and it is FBI business, but to no avail. Even though he is an FBI agent, he cannot pass on notification to the Bureau without permission from his superiors at Alec Station. Casey will later be promoted after 9/11. In the run-up to the 9/11 attacks, Wilshire will write an email expressing his fear of an al-Qaeda attack in Southeast Asia, specifically Malaysia, and will give this as a reason he does not communicate information about al-Mihdhar and his partner, Nawaf al-Hazmi, to the FBI in May of 2001. It will be alleged that after 9/11, the notification may be withheld to stop the FBI interfering with an illegal CIA-linked operation to monitor hijackers in the U.S. On January 12th of 2000, Richard Blee, head of Alec Station, gives an incorrect briefing to his CIA superiors about surveillance of an al-Qaeda operative in Southeast Asia. He claims that Malaysian authorities and the CIA are continuing to monitor al-Qaeda operatives who gathered for a summit meeting in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. In actual fact, 3 of the summit's attendees, Khalid al-Mihdhar, Nawaf al-Hazmi, and al-Qaeda leader Khalid bin Atash, have already left Kuala Lumpur for Bangkok, Thailand, and have disappeared there. The 9/11 Commission will say that Blee is unaware at first even that the Arabs had left Kuala Lumpur, let alone that their trail had been lost in Thailand, and that he may not have known that in fact al-Mihdhar and his companions have dispersed and the tracking was falling apart. These statements will be sourced to an interview with Blee in December 2003 and contemporary CIA documents. However, Alec Station is well aware of the departure of the 3 men, as it was notified of this and sent a follow-up cable on January 9th, telling the CIA station in Bangkok to find them there. It is unclear why Blee gives such an inaccurate briefing, but he gives a similar one 2 days later. January 14th, 2000, Richard Blee again wrongly informs his CIA superiors about surveillance of an al-Qaeda operative in Southeast Asia. Repeating a claim he made in a briefing 2 days previously, he says that Malaysian authorities and the CIA are continuing to monitor al-Qaeda operatives who gathered for a summit meeting in Malaysia. In actual fact, 3 of the summit's attendees have already left Kuala Lumpur from Bangkok. Alec Station is well aware of the departure once again. In addition, 1 day before this briefing, the CIA station in Bangkok sent Alec Station a cable saying it was unable to locate the men in Thailand. However, the NSA never lost track of them and were monitoring Nawaf al-Hazmi's cell phone all this time. This information was never passed on to the FBI, the State Department, or the National Security Council. July 13th, 2001. A CIA manager says that an additional intelligence officer, Doug Miller, will be assigned to help an ongoing low-key review of al-Qaeda's Malaysia summit when Miller returns from holiday. The statement is made in response to an email by CIA manager Toim Wilshire, who pointed out that al-Qaeda leader Khalid bin Atash attended the summit meeting. It was important. Presumably, the manager that sends this email is Richard Blee, who is responsible for Alec Station. Blee appears to have received the email to which this is a response to. The review is currently only being conducted by one intelligence officer, Margaret Gillespie, who is only told to do it in her spare time and who takes it over 3 months to find CIA cables indicating 2 of the future 9/11 hijackers have entered the United States. Miller's help would certainly benefit the review, as he is already aware of one of the hijackers, Khalid al-Mihdhar, had a U.S. visa, but a cable he drafted to notify was blocked by Wilshire just months ago. However, there is no mention of Miller actually being given the assignment on his return and no sign he does any work on this. Wilshire also asks that the FBI be officially told Bin Atash attended the meeting in Malaysia, but this information, once again, is withheld. Between 2003 and 2004, 2 FBI agents were involved in pre-9/11 failure. Doug Miller and Mark Rossini are reportedly eager to provide testimony to the 9/11 Commission about that failure. However, the commission does not issue them with a subpoena or otherwise interview them about the matter. Miller and Rossini were on loan to Alec Station by New York City FBI headquarters under John O'Neill. The commission will cite the transcript of an interview of Miller by the Justice Department's Inspector General in its final report. However, in the interview, Miller falsely claims that he remembers nothing of the incident. The commission's final report will also cite an interview it apparently conducted with Miller in December 2003, although this is an endnote to a paragraph on terrorist financing. As the blocked cable is not discovered by investigators until February 2004, Miller is presumably not asked about it at the interview. In early February of 2004, the Justice Department's Inspector General, which is reviewing the FBI's performance before 9/11, finds a reference to a key document it was not previously aware of. The document is a draft cable written by Doug Miller. The draft cable stated that Khalid al-Mihdhar had a U.S. visa, but its sending to the FBI had been blocked by a female CIA officer known only as Michael and Alec Station's Deputy Chief Toim Wilshire. The CIA Inspector General had previously passed on numerous documents related to the review by the Justice Department's Inspector General, but had failed to pass this one on, although the 2 Inspector General reports have been working together since at least mid-2003. The Justice Department Inspector General finds a reference to the draft cable in a list of CIA documents accessed by FBI employees assigned to the CIA. As a result of this discovery, the Justice Department Inspector General has to re-interview several witnesses, and the completion of the report is delayed. February 12th, 2004, Doug Miller and Mark Rossini falsely claimed they have no memory of the blocking of a key cable about Khalid al-Mihdhar in an interview with the Justice Department's Office of Inspector General. Miller drafted the cable, which was to inform the FBI that Mihdhar had a U.S. visa while he and Rossini were on loan to Alec Station. The CIA officer known only as Michael, Miller and Rossini remembers the events but falsely tell the Justice Department Inspector General they cannot recall them. However, sources close to the Inspector General's probe will say there was pressure on people not to disclose what really happened. Rossini, in particular, is said to have felt threatened that the CIA would have him prosecuted for violating the Intelligence Identities Protection Act if he said what really happened inside Alec Station. They are questioned at the same time and together with a CIA officer who will be described as sympathetic, although it is unclear why even CIA officials are in the same room during the questioning. When they are shown contemporary documents, according to the Congressional Quarterly, the FBI agents suddenly couldn't remember details about who said what or who reported what to whom about the presence of two al-Qaeda agents in the U.S. prior to the 9/11 attacks. The Inspector General investigators are suspicious of the CIA. Nevertheless, neither Rossini nor Miller are severely criticized by the Inspector General's final report. It simply notes, when we interviewed all the individuals involved about the cable, they asserted that they recalled nothing about it. Miller told the Inspector General that he did not recall being aware of the information about al-Mihdhar and did not recall drafting the cable. Also did not recall whether he drafted the cable on his own initiative or at the directive of his supervisor, and did not recall any discussions about the reasons for delaying completion and dissemination of the cable. Rossini said he did not recall reviewing any of the cable traffic or any information regarding al-Hazmi and al-Mihdhar. Eric, a senior FBI agent on loan to Alec Station, told the Inspector General that he did not recall the cable. However, at some point, both Miller and Rossini would tell an internal FBI investigation what really happened, including Wilshire's order to withhold the information from the FBI. However, very little is known about this probe. Rossini will be interviewed for a 2006 book by Lawrence Wright and will recall some of the circumstances of the blocking of the cable, including that a CIA officer told Miller this is not a matter for the FBI. Both Miller and Rossini will later talk to author James Bamford about the incident for a 2008 book. The exact date of this interview of Miller and Rossini is unknown. However, an endnote to the 9/11 Commission report will say that Miller is interviewed by the Inspector General on February 12, 2004, so it may occur on this day. Shortly before October 1st of 2008, the FBI attempts to prevent two agents who were involved in a key pre-9/11 failure from talking about it in a television interview. Doug Miller and Mark Rossini, they were involved in the deliberate blocking of a cable to the FBI, saying that 9/11 hijacker Khalid al-Mihdhar had a U.S. visa, and later, under pressure from the CIA, falsely claimed not to remember anything about it. The FBI allowed Miller and Rossini to be interviewed by author James Bamford for a book, and they told him they helped block the cable on the orders of a female CIA officer known only as Michael and the station's deputy chief, Toim Wilshire. However, when Bamford wants them to repeat their stories for a PBS documentary he is making, the FBI initially says yes, but then retracts its approval, saying the Bureau doesn't want to stir up old conflicts with the CIA.